Welcome to Magnet Marketers, our weekly live show where we break down the head, heart, and hand approach to building sustainable growth in your business. During each episode, we share actual client marketing best practice examples, strategies, and tactics that will help you generate real results. Our belief? A magnet always works better than being a bullhorn to attract, retain, and build your brand. Ready to dive into this week's Relationship Marketing Training Tuesday? Well, let's get started. Here's your host, Mike Gingerich and Jessika Phillips. Yay, 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 yay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week Training Tuesday Live. We're Magnet Marketers. Our goal is always to help you become a magnet with your marketing versus being a bullhorn. And today we're here talking about marketing in the new normal, air quotes, but how do you market your brand today successfully because of all the changes that have happened over the 2-year, long year, whatever we're going into now. But how do you market your business successfully? We have a special guest to tell you all about it. He's super successful. Cannot wait to introduce him. But before we do and bring him up, if we've not met before, hello, my name is Jessika Phillips with Now Marketing Group in the Relationship Marketing System. And my personal mission is to help you love more, give more, and be more through the art of authentic relating. And my awesome co-host, he's Mike Gingerich. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, doing well.
Good. And Mike lives to add value to people's lives in uncommon ways, such as running a marathon in Iraq to raise funds to rebuild homes for displaced Iraqis. He loves to explore through travel. He's a fitness nerd and tries to leave lots of smiles behind wherever he goes. And he does a really good job with that. How's it going, Mike? Again.
Hey, I am excited to be here today and excited for our guest. Welcome, everyone. Wow, we got Tim in the house. Jennifer, welcome. Thank you for being here. Julia, of course, always. Jacqueline, wow, the Chad, man. That's right, man. I mean, it's cold weather back here. Again, I don't know where you're at, Chad, but turtleneck had to come out. So, yes.
Oh, we got all the people in the house. Hello, welcome. And if you are watching in with us and you've not said hello yet, please do so in the comments. We'd love to give you a shout out as well, but love seeing all your beautiful comments come up. Mike, you want to talk about special guest today?
I am so pleased to be able to introduce our guest, and he is a speaker at Social Media Week Lima. Jennifer, yes, I do have a black turtleneck on today, and because I don't know where you're at. I'm in Pennsylvania, and it was freaking cold today. I mean, this was a revisiting of deep January kind of thing here, but yeah. So I got to get past that, and excited to introduce our guest. We have with us today Juntae DeLane. Juntae is a sought-after strategist, thought leader, influencer. He's the founder and CEO of Juntae DeLane, full-service digital agency, and the founder of Digital Branding Institute. He's often noted as the top social media content marketing influencer, spoken around the world, including Social Media Week Lima, advancing the practice of digital branding. And if you can't catch him on stage or online, you can probably find him at the gym doing his 1,000th push-up. All right, so Jessica, can you top that?
I'm telling you, look, he's here. Showing up strong. How's it going?
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Good.
All right. Good to have you here.
Yeah. I'm excited to be here. I'm always looking forward to collaborating with you, Jessica and Mike and the Now Marketing Group team. It's always good times whenever we connect.
I love it. And I cannot help but notice that there's a second version of you in the background. A little bobblehead back there. Oh my gosh. Look, and you're kind of matching a little, like the colors anyway. I love it.
I like it.
Yeah, you were amazing speaking at Social Media Week Lima. Would love to have you back, by the way, side note. But you were just, one of the really high-rated speakers of the event. We definitely wanted to have you on Magnet Marketers because I couldn't believe we hadn't had you on yet. But you were just a wealth of information and really just explaining how brands can pivot, adapt, and really sustainably grow no matter what climate, but especially now. You had some messages to share on just what does it look like today and what do brands need to know. So I thought this is really good information for everyone as we're entering in now April later this week. I say that with like big eyes, big blinks.
Friday, Friday.
Started.
Yeah.
But I want to just talk about some of the information that you have and how marketing has changed in recent years and how we can help brands adapt and survive and thrive now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think when you consider how we even got here, it's certainly going to help to, for you to project how to get out of this, right? And how to start to market in that new normal. So I really look at the past events that have happened, let's say over the last 15 years or so, that caused some type of change, right? And this can be very similar to our personal relationships. If we had some type of dynamic interaction with someone, it's kind of like you're not really looking at them the same, or you can't really talk to them the same because stuff is just kind of different now, right? So it's the same thing with businesses. The first catalyst I think I've noticed was probably in 2008, the Occupy Wall Street movement. After you've seen that, after that event, you started to notice changes in the way that corporations started to communicate, right? They started to become more diverse, more transparent. I mean, even to the point where new restaurants that opened up, they had an open floor plan, right? And then you start to see the CEOs and CMOs start to be the face of their organization. And people essentially wanted to know the why. Like, why are you in business? Is it just for money, or do you giving back? Do you have some type of cause, so on and so forth? So I think that was a catalyst, right? The most recent would probably also be the Black Lives Matter movement. And when we think about the Black Lives Matter movement, for me personally, I just start to notice a whole lot more Black people on TV, like in commercials, in very untraditional spaces, finances, health, so on and so forth. Even on TV, there's just a difference in the type of diversity that was there. And so I think this was a catalyst because corporations had to really hone in on exactly, where they were with regard to diversity and inclusion. And there was a lot of D&I type of initiatives that many corporations had because of it. And then, of course, we have the pandemic, right? Everyone was stuck at home. They couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't interact with the brand in the physical space. And so brands were forced to double down on their digital, right? And so I know now marketing group, you guys probably had an influx of new clients because of the pandemic. Ourselves here at Digital DeLane, same thing, right? And so we take those events and really learn from them and prepare for how we can actually overcome and be successful marketers during that time. So yeah, those are one thing that I would certainly say, to focus on like the history and sort of how brands have actually evolved based on their communications after some type of catalyst, right? And how are you actually as an organization prepared to do so going forward?
I love that. And Chad says, Juntae, your mic arm looks intense. It's been doing push-ups too, apparently. No, but I love what you shared there about, like, it's almost like the community at large is a mirror for brands to really take a hard look and say, hey, we can't put our head in the sand anymore. I mean, they can, but those are the brands that are closing, right? Those are the brands that are, that had this great resignation of team members even leaving, right? And saying, like, I don't want to work for an organization that doesn't care about me. And am I feeling fulfilled? It's not just about the money. Like you said, the Occupy Wall Street. Is it just about the money that you're selling, or what are you really here to do? Like, how do I know that you really care and that you get me and that I want to buy from you, because buying from you says something about me, and can I see myself belonging with you? It's a good mirror. I think all these situations are a good mirror, and brands, what I'm hearing you say is that they need to pay attention to say, what is this saying about us? How can we show up in a way that does show that we care, and how are we going to participate in that? I love
Absolutely. That. Right. And it's not all about sales in a sense. And I think that because of the pandemic and people having more time, obviously content consumption has skyrocketed. But at the same time, many organizations have scaled back in their advertising. So are we just going to, as organizations, are we just going to lay dormant? We have to make sure that we're engaging with the audience and staying top of mind. And so one key objective in terms of marketing in the new normal would be to make sure that we sharpen up our brand voice and making that brand voice more personalized, right? And the reason why that's so important, as I'm sure you know, Jessika and Mike, is that we need to focus on being personal. And you'll be rewarded with the algorithms on through social media, because some of the very salesy and promotional messages aren't going to have as much organic reach. But essentially, because consumers during the pandemic had so much time on their hands, they're starting to drill down a little bit deeper into your brand and all of your digital touch points, right? Which I would call your digital brand. And essentially, once they drill down to all those digital touch points, they may not be ready to purchase yet, but they just want something to do. So if they can engage with your brand, right, it's going to help them through this time. And really what it boils down to is having a brand voice that is more personalized and more entertaining in some sense, right? And not just about promoting your messages. Now, as marketers, this is something that's commonplace, but I just think it's definitely very important when marketing in the new normal, because you have a trend that's starting to permeate, but now you have to focus on that brand voice being very similar to fashion, as an example. There's fashion trends, right? Like if this was 10 years ago, we probably would all have suits on, shirt and tie, pantsuits, like all that stuff, right? But now when we go to conferences, you rarely see a tie. Well, because times have changed, right? No matter how buttoned up your organization is, you're going to have to unhook some of those buttons and focus on really connecting with people and being very personal.
Yeah. Now, I like what you said too, that they may not be ready to buy right away, and the brand has to be ready for that. So there is an interplay or a time period in between that brands may not have in the past thought of. I mean, it was marketing, sale, to what you're describing now. Do you want to say any more about that kind of interlude, that time period?
Yeah, no, I think certainly when we look at the user journey, it's certainly become more elongated. And if we have anyone on the call that's a part of the B2B industry, let me know, because I'm sure you have seen exactly how long it takes to convert a prospect now post-pandemic. And I think part of that has to do with just them focusing on more value-based purchasing. Meaning, if you're not providing immediate value right now, maybe we can put that off until next quarter, next fiscal year, as an example. So what are you going to do as a brand until then, right? You have to obviously make sure that you're engaging with that individual through things like live streams, through other forms of content, activations, things like that, so that you can focus on staying top of mind, because during the time when they are ready to buy, they're going to remember that. Right.
Yep.
And they're going to remember that experience, and you could basically be come first to mind when they are ready to purchase. Right.
Yeah.
So as you know, that very elongated user journey is going to have to have some type of content to sort of fill in those wide gaps.
Yep.
Right. That you're going to need in order to stay top of mind. Because
you're right. Like, even though it's elongated, previously brands would, if they were just focused on sales and hyper sales focused in that old model of the sales funnel, which I think that's dead and broken, does not work. I think it is a flywheel now.
Yeah.
That you're never done marketing, if you will, because your best leads are coming from word of mouth referrals and people that are engaging with you, like the people that show up here. Some of them will never be our customer, and that's okay, but they're part of our community, because it is this personal sense of belonging, this good rapport that you're building with individuals. So then they think of you, you are top of mind. If somebody does come along that would be a good fit for one of our organizations, and vice versa, referring people, like I've referred people to work with Chad, and, I love learning more about Lisa, and she's like the best hype woman ever, right? Like, and finding out more about the people that are in your community, you find out more about them. When brands are doing the same thing with digging deeper to learn more about their community, while their prospects are learning more about them, what happens is this flywheel effect of gaining momentum, because we say it all the time, like your followers are turning into real fans now on the page, and friends. And then, your clients become, your advocates, and your community then becomes people you could collaborate with, like we're collaborating with you, which then helps build this momentum. So when you are on this journey, like you said, people will think of you, but also you don't have that same hyper sales driven mindset that before was like, oh, you do this many touches, and if they don't buy, then you just move on. It's different now. Marketing and sales have to be intertwined to say we're never done marketing. And sales is something that evolves over time, even after they do purchase from us, that they continue growing with us, potentially on the long term.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so those are some of the key lessons that I think we can learn from the pandemic. And then I think that is going to naturally persist, partially because we're starting to get accustomed over the last 2 years of just how things are, right? And so I think that's going to certainly persist. There's actually another consideration as well when it comes to identifying how you can prepare for the new normal. And that obviously is content, right? And so I think content has changed, and especially the way that people consume content. You know, when you look at new forms of content, new shows, as an example, new series and so on, they're obviously more episodic, right? And so, for example, if Netflix, Disney Plus, or something like that were to drop a piece of content, it's more than likely going to be a series, right? Episodic. And so what does that mean, and how does that relate to the type of content that brands create for consumers? I think it ultimately has to be episodic, right? And so when we think about quick ephemeral content, with the proliferation and growth of TikTok as an example, YouTube Reels or Shorts, and so many other native features for these social networks, we got to think about how can we tell our brand story in that has essentially no beginning, middle, and end, right? But it's a brand story that focuses specifically on bite-sized pieces of content that tell a story over time, right? And that story over time is naturally going to grow with the market trends as well. The D&I initiative that we talked about earlier on from organizations, if they focus on creating episodic, bite-sized, ephemeral pieces of content, that story could then evolve into more diversity after the learnings that they had over, you know, the death of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter movement, so on and so forth, just as an example. So we want to take some of those cues, those market cues, and begin to apply them to the types of content that we create as an organization. So that's so important. Yeah.
That makes your brand craveable. Like what we talked about, you know, Social Media Week Lima, like it makes it to where people want more of your brand. And like, I love that you use like Netflix as an example, because when you dive in on that, what do you want to do? You want to binge it when you really enjoy it and you feel connected to it. And that's what we want, to build the sentiment, to build the deeper relationships, or to give people something to come back to that they enjoy and they don't feel like they're being sold to, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
I mean, I love that. You hear people talk about that as well. Like with Netflix, you know, if somebody rolled out and said, hey, we've created this 10-hour movie, just go and watch it at one time, people will be like, what? No way, you know? But when they break it down into 10 1-hour segments, people will still binge watch it in 10 hours, but it's okay because it's 10 episodes. And so, so I hear you saying kind of we need to think in terms of episodes, which takes a little bit more strategy involved, right? I mean, you have to think through not just, okay, what am I going to put out next week, but how is that tied into last week and the week after? Is you want to go further there?
Yeah, no, 100%. And by thinking about creating ephemeral content, you also can align that content with the latest trend of the day. You wouldn't be able to do that, right, if you have created that 10-hour piece of content as an example, right? Because now, as an example, you know, this is live, so I'm sure we may be all familiar with what happened at the Oscars, right, over the weekend, right?
Yeah,
exactly, right. So how does that brand story, and this could be a stretcher, but just follow me. How could that brand story, right, be aligned with the current trend of what's happening now, right? Is it mental health issues, awareness, well-being, you know,
I like that.
women shaving their head, like women, you know, wearing low cut. So there's so many different approaches. But if you had that ephemeral piece of content, tag that in or tie that into the current trend, your content is going to go much, much further organically.
Okay. Yeah. No, I love that. So you already know where you're going, but then you fine tune it in that moment with what's there right then.
Absolutely, 100%. And even I remember watching that on Slack, watching that, I Slacked my team to say, hey, what can this moment mean for our clients?
Exactly.
How can we leverage this moment? Like
Tastefully.
It takes exactly right.
Because
exactly.
I had a client actually email me today. I'm not going to say their name, but they emailed me and they're like, let's put up an ad and say, you should have used our organization or whatever. It's like, no. I don't think, because it didn't match their tone. Now, if there would have been something that matched their tone or whatever, and it would have been fun and playful and they're snarky or whatever, maybe. But I wouldn't run an ad with it. I would still I told them, like, if anything, you run a social post to test the, how your audience would relate, but tastefully. So I like that the timeliness and using things that are related and telling the story, because I've seen lots of that actually online, and I paid attention, and people were saying, what does this mean of like for comedy in general, and like, people being more sensitive and to issues, and they were talking and expanded upon that, and that is interesting, and I did appreciate that. But like when people try to use situations not tastefully, then it's more of a cringe thing. Just
100%. Yeah, no, you bring a great point, because not everyone and every brand could or even should do that, right? And so I think it's more of a sort of learning lesson where we start to think about, oh, this is an opportunity to leverage a trend. How does that connect with our brand? And if it does, great, right? Test it out. If it doesn't, say, yeah, it's not connecting, but it'll keep you in that mind frame to where anytime this happens again, then we'll be ready for it. And that's one piece of advice that I always give any social team or any brand that's doing social media, is to focus on, are you set up for what's next in terms of any of the social trends that could be happening, from the Oscars to the Super Bowl to the Olympics? These are events and activations that are going to start trends on social media. How can we begin to leverage some of those things? And so just start the process of asking yourself that, I think, is the first start, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
No, and that makes you then think of how you approach this then as a brand. It would be getting into that mindset, right? And like conditioning of having these conversations, but then also like setting that up for yourself. Then how do we do this weekly? Or, sometimes you have to be on it right then. And not only just listen, social listening needs to be a part of your strategy, but then also how are we capturing, delivering, and moving at the speed of what's happening, right? You can't delay things. The real time, real people doing real things, like that has to be understood, that the freedom of your creative team and along with the freedom, the understanding of who the brand tone is, to make sure that they're not going to just post the cringe thing that we just talked about, but also they would have the understanding of, here's who our brand is, here's how we want to show up, the personality of the brand, and I have now permission and access to be able to then utilize that in a way that's timely and relatable, and will build more rapport with our community and relationships, and create that craveability. So it is just a real gut check, I think, for organizations now to say, do we have this in place? And do we have the personality of our brand so we can make those decisions on how we use it? And are we agile enough to make sure that it can happen?
Oh man, that's the operative word right there, agile, right? That agility is definitely, you have to determine if you're even set up that way, right? And so some of you maybe it's like, I work for such a big organization, we'll never be able to approve content that quickly. And so I just noticing that is obviously the first step, the acknowledgement. And then the second would be, how can you get to a point where you can be reactive and be able to fully leverage certain situations that are aligned with your brand, right? And so is that, having a specific process of, if this were to happen, then these are the necessary triggers that are needed in order for it to happen. So-and-so gets a call, text message, email, so on, blah, 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 blah. And then we can, send it to the graphic designer, have it approved. And if you can turn around 24 hours at least, great, right? but start to go through that step and see those steps and see exactly what it would look like for your organization.
Amen. I love that. Yeah. It takes then now taking a hard look and starting to build that process, because this is what it is. And it's not going to get easier. I think if anything, it's just going to get a little bit more only expected, right? Like I think people are going to start following. We talked about this dark social, which was the theme last year at Social Media Week Lima, that conversations are happening in the inbox, and the only people getting invited to those conversations, when I say the inbox, that could be stories, it could be, private niche
DMs,
communities,
right? Yeah.
smaller communities. And the only people that are getting invited to that are people that are noticed, that are relatable, and that can be invited naturally into the conversation, because nobody's going to want to go to a brand page and see what they're saying. It's like, if they're not already part of that conversation, you're not getting seen, right? Like, and I love that you said the stats, and I know these stats match up, that people will drill in deeper to your content when you get noticed. Like we see that like brands get skipped all the time, and we see this all the time, even with the next generation, this scroll on TikTok or whatever, but they find something that they like. They're looking at all of your stuff. Like I love how Lisa said she thinks she got to the end of Netflix, well, the new consumer gets to the end of your content sometimes,
Yeah.
because when they really are interested. So it's like paying attention to that too. And the analytics. By the way, if you guys want a recap of this, type the word recap in the comments. We'll make sure that you get a blog recap of this so you can follow along only and replay what has been said here today, because there's some big knowledge bombs here, and really the approach that and mindset that we need to look at on how to market in the new normal, but also links to connect with Juntae, because I'm telling you, he's a wealth of wisdom and insight in this topic. So, but yeah, so what should brands do right now today if they're like listening to this and they're like, I get it, I have some work to do? Where should they start?
Yeah, so I think first things first is really to focus on revising your personas. And if you've created some personas pre-pandemic, you probably got to start over, right? And so
I
obviously,
think I just heard Jessica squeal when you said that. I mean, she's just beyond herself right now.
I had to mute myself. Yeah, I was like,
no worries. No, I feel it. I feel it for sure. Because at the end of the day, people's challenges, their fears, their beliefs, and so on has been impacted by the pandemic. And so the way in which you communicate to them could be missing the target completely, because your customers are in a completely different place mentally, emotionally, and even sometimes physically. So yeah, I would say updating your persona if your personas were documented personas were created pre-pandemic.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Love that. By the way, we'll make sure to include the link on, that creation process too, or, contact information, because you help people create personas too, I'm sure, your clients. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like how to get going on that process, because it is more than just, oh, they live here in this age demographic and yada, yada. It's like you just said, what are they reading? What are they feeling right now? Like, what do they respond to? Like, how do you start a conversation with them that's relatable and that is going to get past the surface level crap, right? Like that's really authentically relating, because that's what's going to matter. People want to feel something, and they're not going to settle for vanilla anymore. There's too much out there, too much noise out there, and they're only going to pay attention to the stuff that's real. So definitely refining personas is spot on. I love that you said that. So where can people find you if they do want to connect with you and don't even want to wait for the blog tomorrow?
Yeah, so I mean, you can definitely find me on social media, on LinkedIn. DigitalDeLane.com is my company site. But I wanted to also make sure that I'm able to leave everyone with something. And so I do have a brand strategy toolkit that I want to make available for everyone. It's about 7 templates that we use. We do a brand strategy workshop with some of the clients. So these are essentially the exact templates that we use. So it's highly valuable. And if you're looking to reassess your brand strategy, going into the new normal, then I'm sure that can be a valuable resource for you.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for that. That's a wealth of information.
So, and I have that link added in the comments there and also on the screen. So make sure to jot that down, check it out. He's giving you gold right now, guys. So like definitely check it out and see what this looks like for your brand and how you can apply the new mindset in this newish normal. Normal is really what I'm putting air quotes around.
Yeah,
But it is what it is, and we're here. And I actually like it because I feel like it's just building more authenticity, and really kind of the veil between brands and clients has shrunk quite a bit. And
Absolutely. Don't go back. That's right.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Now we get to do business with the real people that care about us. So speaking of which, I care about all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in with us here today. We'll be back here next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I hope you found some value in this. And if so, share it with somebody else that you feel will find some value in it too. And until then, have a good rest of your week. And thank you so much, Juntae and Mike, and all of you for being here today. See you guys later.
Juntae, thanks, man.
Bye.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.